You skipped it, you dissed it, you said it's a bore. But what if that film's got a little bit more? What if I don't like it? What if it's bad? What if it's awkward or lazy or sad? But what if it's genius, a total surprise? What if it's gold when I open my eyes? We're watching the films you love to avoid. Now sit down and deal with your cinephile void. What if I don't like it? Let's give it a spin. You might hate it or love it. Let's dive right in.
There is a big difference between not liking something and thinking it isn't good. One is taste and the other is critique. And when we blur those lines, especially in film, it is incredibly easy to write things off without even actually engaging with them. And more often than not, this is because we're dealing with more of the idea of the film itself than even our reaction to what we are seeing. Take, for example, Pride and Prejudice, specifically the 2005 Joe Wright version. When talking to people about whether or not they have seen this, I have heard a lot of reasons as to why they have not. It is not a real Jane Austen adaptation. Kiera Knightley is too pouty or too thin, or I just hate her as an actress, or it's too modern for a period piece. And I get it. Maybe it's loyalty to the 1995 miniseries and Colin Firth's super soggy shirt. Trust me, I get it. Or maybe it's simply period piece or Jane Austen fatigue. Maybe you assume this one is not faithful enough, or it's just too romantic, or too steamy, or that all Jane Austen adaptations should be really buttoned up, satirical, and reverent. But here's the thing. Plenty of folks have decided all of these things without ever actually watching this version. And at a certain point, you kind of have to ask, are those reasons, or are they just Pride and Prejudice? Because if you actually watch this version of Pride and Prejudice, you might notice it's earthy, it's intimate, it's kind of wild, it's beautiful, it's like a painting come to life. It is full of feeling and full of so much joy and humanity. It is way less precious than people assume, and that is on purpose. So, join me this episode along with our guest, Crystal Justine, who's a filmmaker, a critic, and a writer, and the founder of the Cinema Nook. And we're going to break down where all of that resistance can come from and why this version might just win over the doubters. Or at least, make them rethink what a Jane Austen adaptation can be.
Welcome, guys. We are here for another episode of What If I Don't Like It? And this time we're talking about the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. And we are joined by Crystal Justine. And I am so hyped to have you here and for everybody to get to meet you.
No, I'm so excited to be here. My second podcast ever. So I might not look nervous dying inside, but once I'm here, I'm here.
I would have no idea. I'm hyped to say that this podcast often has people on who are either first or second time doing a podcast, and that I hope that speaks to how comfortable we make it for everybody to just come on and talk about how they feel about a movie. Because again, these are opinions and observations. They are not the end all be all, because we are talking about why we may not like something, why we may have a prejudice, our pride about our prejudice,
possibly both.
Possibly both. But before we get into the movie, I would love to introduce you more to the audience who might not know you. You are obviously a film critic, because that's how I met you. I met you on Film Talk on TikTok, doing reviews and stuff like that. You're also a filmmaker, though, which is really awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of everything this past year. I think, being in my late 30s, I'm having an existential crisis every other day.
Yep.
I think as, we get older, we're like, oh crap, maybe I don't have all the time in the world to do all the things that I want to do. So now I'm kind of just, I'm just going with it at this point. But I've just always loved film, and I've seen people write. Writing is my number one passion. So I've seen, all these different movie review websites. So I was like, you know what, let me make my own. So I have the cinemanook.com. We have some great
Mhm.
writers on there. It's been a year, but we're really, going for it, doing a lot of movie reviews. And then, I mean, TikTok, I've been on for a couple years now, which is how we know each other. So I'm pretty much Hey Crystal J across all the platforms because I like to make it easy, mostly for myself.
Yes, for a while I was multiple names across different platforms, and then I was like, it's got to be at Movie Runtime. It's just too difficult to switch it off back and forth. Makes the plugs so heavy. I do love
Yeah.
your website, Cinema Nook, which has got
Thank
reviews and stuff. And
you.
all of these links are going to be in the liner notes. If you're looking to get any of this and you're listening to us, it'll be there. You have two other contributors there. I
Mhm.
do know one of the two of them, OTS, on TikTok
OTS
as well.
movies. Yeah, Stephen
Yeah.
Lackey. And he is someone, we'll talk about that too, because I work on a lot of my movie projects with him. So, because he's a film director. But yeah, he kind of went in on me, with me with the Cinema Nook because he was interested in doing something similar. He's written for a lot of different publications. I think his actual degree is journalism and communication. So he's written for all sorts of them before, but he wanted to be more into kind of having one. So we really kind of co-partner that. He built up the website and then we both
Nice.
write. And then we also have his name is JR. His handle is Screened and Scored.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic writer, fantastic movie reviewer on TikTok and all the socials. He is so just in depth and it's so funny because I edit any of the writers that contribute. I'll go through and I'll edit. I barely have
Nice.
to edit him. Reading his articles, it is exactly the way he speaks because he's so like meditative and just the way he speaks is the way he writes and I love it.
Rare, both to get someone that you barely have to edit and to have someone whose spoken voice is the same as their written voice and to have them both be equally professional.
Yeah.
That's a rare
Yeah.
find.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love when I don't have to edit much. That's my favorite because
To the
I'm
choir,
one of
you are preaching.
oh, and I am one of those people. I used to have a book club back in the day. It was called Bitches Can Read.
Love
It
it.
was just a book club with my girlfriends. We'd pick a book, then we'd go to brunch, talk about it, eat the whole thing. Someone picked 50 Shades of Grey. Oh, my, when I say I took a red pen out, I took a literal red pen out to 50 Shades of Grey, and the bitch was bleeding. It
I
was
have to. It's so
so
badly
bad.
edited. It really reminds you that it is fan fiction when you're like, they didn't run this through any level of editing.
Yeah, fan fiction, self-published. I don't even
Sometimes
think
the
it's.
names
I don't
still
even think
say,
it's self-edited.
yeah, sometimes some of the names still said Edward and Bella. They had not correctly switched
Yeah.
all the names.
Yep, it was. Yeah, so that's the kind of editor I am. I'm so, even if I text someone, I'll like forget a comma and I'm like, oh my God, they think I'm an idiot. Even though I know no one cares, I care.
I care, and that's
I
what
care.
matters.
But
That's great.
thankfully on the website, it's us three writing and we all collab really good. So
Mhm,
that is always nice. And then I
mhm.
guess we can go into like the filmmaking stuff
Yeah.
that I'm doing. So I did a short film last summer. Stephen Lackey, OTS movies. He always does the 48-hour film project in Nashville.
Yes. And Nashville.
So he
Cool.
asked me if I wanted to collab with that. So we co-wrote and, made a short movie last year. In December, we worked on a project. It's like a series, like a comedy series. So I assistant directed on that. That's in post-production. So waiting on that right now. And then I'm currently working on two documentaries. Yeah, it's a lot. One I cannot speak about yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I am co-directing and producing that one. But the
Mm-hmm.
one I can talk about, that's called Love Horror, and I'm producing that. Steven is directing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going really well so far. We just started a few months ago. It's interesting the differences between a narrative and a documentary filmmaking. Because a narrative, you get like the script, and then you have a schedule, and then you film it, and then you
Mm-hmm.
production. You know what I mean? And with this documentary, we're doing interviews like here and there, as funds come up, because the documentary, it's pretty much about the horror community. Like, why is the genre as big as it is? Because you don't see like these communities bonding over drama films and books or,
Mm-hmm.
comedies, but like on TikTok, like horror talk is humongous.
Yeah, I think the only other genre I can think that even comes close is anime, but that's a like huge other because it also
That's like a medium,
manga
like a
and
scope.
it's like a whole thing. But like community wise, these people band together.
Yeah, the horror community is so strong and they're also so welcoming, which is it's the dichotomy of it because you're bonding over like guts and gore and trauma and it's like, oh, you love this extreme horror movie, me too, perfect, let's be friends. And you're just like, how did that happen?
Yes, it does feel like a double-edged sword because it is an incredibly welcoming community. It is also a small community. Sometimes it does feel like everyone knows everyone. So if anyone pisses anyone off, it does start to become a little bit like there have been a few times with the horror community where I have to remind everyone that I am 40 and I do not have time for this. I'm like, I love you all. I love you all. And I don't understand why you're fighting, but I'm sure we can come to an agreement.
You're like, let's all be friends. Let us all be friends. And with the social media community, it's a lot of them really do like know each other. And there's definitely things that go on in that community. Me, I've always been the girl, just even in life, give me all the tea. I don't want to be in it.
Yes.
I want to know everyone's drama. Please come to me, tell me. However, it's going to stay with me, but never put me in it.
We're both writers, so we're like, look, I love to hear how the human condition works. It's what I'm fascinated with writing about. I don't want to put myself in my own work. I mean, you'll get your Roethlisbergers who are basically just having fantasy porn where they're like, what if I was a really cool guy and everyone liked me? I'm not really writing for that.
Exactly. So right now we've been doing interviews with a lot of like horror talk, like social media, people that focus really on like horror is their genre that they talk about. But we're also getting interviews from filmmakers. There is special effects like makeup artists we're going to be interviewing soon. And he has like a 30-year span in Hollywood of work. So I'm really excited for that. Last week we're actually in LA and we did an interview with a coffee shop owner and it is horror themed. It's called Horror Vibes Coffee. And there's one here in Vegas where I live that they just made, and then one over in North Hollywood. So the whole entire coffee shop is themed with horror, murals and dolls and all of the drinks. There's a Candyman drink and a Carrie drink, and it's so fun how like big the genre spreads. There's merch everywhere. Like horror is literally everywhere we go.
Yeah, and it's such a not only is it welcoming as a viewer, it's kind of welcoming as a filmmaker. I mean, my first films were horror films because, you think, oh, it's so expensive. Well, the special effects of this, so you can make it work on a budget, and the audience forgives a low budget, unlike any other audience.
They love indie horror. They love, and the thing I've been realizing too, which I am one of them as well, I really love practical effects. I love
yes.
Give me all the practical effects. And even, sometimes they aren't going to look as good, but it's the appreciation for using the practical effects that I love.
And often the hairline to which this may or may not work. Boutine is my favorite FX guy. I like Savini, but I love Boutine. And the thing that he did in the thing where the head pops off and runs across the room, like they got one take on that. Otherwise, it wasn't going to be in the film. So these people are almost like magicians. It's so cool to watch them do their art.
You have to make it work. I just watched, since our whole topic is basically first time watch, I just watched The Thing for the first time the other day. And I was just like, oh my God, these practical effects. And then I'm just looking at it and I'm just like, I wonder if they used Twizzlers for that part. But all the practical effects were so fun. And especially for that time that it came out. I'm just like, okay, all right. It was exciting.
Great film. T to B, the performances, the writing, the directing, the special effects, even the poster is amazing. Sadly, the artist who worked on the poster of that, also the artist who did the posters for Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Big Trouble in Little China. He just he's had dementia so badly that he can no longer write back to his fans. So his wife had to issue on social media saying like, hey, we can't write back to you anymore, but we do still love your letters. And this is where he is now. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. See, and then just like, and I'm sure a lot of those are horror fans. They're just, I feel like they're just very dedicated to that
Mm-hmm.
specific genre. Even, horror books, and we see like
Mm-hmm.
Stephen King, the king of horror books. Yeah, everything gets
Mm-hmm.
adapted to a film or a series or something or another.
Well, he had that wonderful Dollar Baby project for the longest time before his
He
recent
did.
merge with
Hmm.
Flanagan. That Dollar Baby closed, I think, in 2020, 2017, something like that. The last like
Yeah,
5 or
about
6
10 years
years.
ago, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got a Dollar Baby in 2015
You
to work
did?
on something. Yeah, we wound up not going with it and going in a different direction, but we bought the
Yeah.
rights for a year for $1 because you could.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's a wonderful filmmaker a wonderful writer who kind of encourages everybody. Like he writes a lot of premises. They're not
Hmm.
full stories. I love his short stories.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really beautiful for a writer. I think, not comparing myself to Stephen King because I'm nowhere near that because I love that man. However, I feel like he's just a generator of ideas, which is kind of what I think of myself as a writer too. I
Mm-hmm.
always say the hardest part of writing is writing because the ideas come to me so much faster than I can sit down and flesh
Yes.
it all out. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Although I do live with someone, my husband is also writes, but he never has ideas. And he's like, if you could just get, I'm like, here's an extra idea. I have too many. I have ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD. Yes, like the same. I think we might have the same mental health conditions over here.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
we're trauma bonding. Perfect.
Oh, I think
Love
that there's
that.
something to be said for women our age on the spectrum with ADHD who are in film. They're like, yeah, we all got like there's so many movies that depicted manic pixies as like the thing to be. Every guy wants to
Mm.
be saved by a manic pixie. And as what would be on paper a manic pixie, like it's hard. We have mental problems. We need to work through this. We can't just be cute so that you feel good about your art, Zach
I
Braff.
know. I can't just be cute and fix everything for you. Let me fix myself.
Yeah, some introspection should probably happen here, but I'm glad that I'm a tool to your self-discovery.
Exactly, exactly. That must be fun that your husband's a writer and then you have all the ideas. So, do you guys collab a lot?
We're trying to collab. He does not consider himself a writer. He would like
Mm,
to pull back from that. He is a very, very gifted editor, and anything I write, I often show to him so that he can edit, because he's the kind of guy who
yeah.
reads the newspaper with a red pen and then sends the newspaper back to the company that wrote it. Mm. Bless. Love it. But yeah, I've been trying to convince him to write something with me for a while. So maybe I'll grind him down as he gets older.
You too. Just write down all the ideas. I literally have like a Word document. I have maybe right now almost 200 like film or short story or just some kind of idea, but
That's great.
they come to me all the time. I can deep dive on Reddit and I'm like, "Oh, that'd be a good movie," or "Oh, this would be a great TV." It's just all the time. I even separate you know how you can separate your favorites, the ones that you save in TikTok,
Mhm.
and you can like, you know,
Yeah.
organize them. I have one that's literally just writing inspo. I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea. Throw it in there.
Throw it in there. I prefer to leave myself unhinged voice notes in my iPhone that I don't check to make sure the autocorrect hasn't fucked. So that like
Yeah.
a year later I can go back and be like, Randonautica serial killer? That's all I left myself. What the fuck was I talking about?
What was I talking about? See, I would do voice notes. I'm one of those people where I just hate the sound of my own voice. So that'll just make me cringe. But I am just the notes app on my phone and then just old school, like post-it notes. I have post-it notes everywhere. I found some under my car seat the other day. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be a good movie.
The unhinged notes like I'm in the movie Memento.
Or sometimes it's just a song. I was listening to, it's an old school song. It's called Lovely Day.
Mhm.
Lovely day. That one? Yeah. So as I'm listening to this in the car just yesterday, I write a note and I'm like, revenge scene, murder a bunch of people to Lovely Day song.
God, if you don't write it down though,
It's
you're
gone.
screwed. I woke up in the middle of the night last night thinking, oh yeah, I'd watched Pride and Prejudice last night, just to have it in my head fast and new. and I thought something like, oh, blank plus blank with blank would be great. Remember that. And I woke up in the middle of the night like, blank plus blank? What?
What were the blanks?
What were the blank? For like 25 minutes, like really trying to.
Yeah, no, if I don't write it down now, it is gone forever in the wind.
What I really like about the love horror documentary when I was looking at it, because there have been a few documentaries talking about communities within horror, is that you are also kind of centering it around the TikTok ban and the way that this possible loss of community could have affected people, and that like kind of realization that this is a little bit more ephemeral than we thought it was.
Exactly. Well, so many people, I know a ton of people, in and outside of horror talk that were really, upset about the potential ban. And I mean, it did go down. Granted, it was like, what, 12 hours?
It's 12 hours. Yeah, it's great.
Well, actually, no, I really do think they're just fucking with us, but but no, it's for some people, it's their livelihoods. I know people that have quit their day jobs to just be content creators because they're making more money as a content creator than they were with jobs using their degrees, which is it's wild to think about, but it's so tied to that platform. So if you have like, a 500,000 or whatever followers and you're making however much, 5, 8K, whatever a month off of that, and then it's gone, what do? Do the sponsors care about you anymore? Did they care about you, or did they care about your followers? And then you also lose this connection with so many people too, because we talk to a lot of people on this platform all the time. I see you, I like your stuff, I comment it, repost it. We have a lot of these relationships, but do a lot of them cross over to your real life? Some do, but then some don't. So are you just, how many people are you losing along the way?
Exactly. Once people started to talk about like this might go away, we're frantically trying to follow people on other platforms because you're like, Jesus, I do check in on all these people every time I come into the app. And when I don't see, when I don't see Chuck for a couple of days, I'm like, I got to pull that back because the algorithm thinks I don't want to see this. And I do. And I know he posts 3 times a day, or I lose you, or I got to find people again. So it was a little scary to be like, wow, so many people who I think of as my like day-to-day interactions would be lost without this, just like straight lost. I don't even know where they live.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of that where you're like, I watch you every single day, or there's people where I'll go search for their content because ever since that shutdown, a lot of people don't pop up anymore. And I'm like, I
Me
follow all these
too.
people and I never see them. So I'm having to, I'll search for their content. And, someone like Dan, Real Takes, I'll literally search for him because I'm like, oh, I know he's posting every day, but it's not popping up. So I'll look for it. Or someone like Harry, Into the Lobby, and some of the great people that are on Horror Talk, Chuck, or Sydney, Horror Chronicles, G Room for Scream. There's all these great content creators, and something's up with the algorithm for sure because I'm having to search them out. But then, if TikTok goes away, I mean, we have Instagram, but it's not the same. It's not the same community that you have with TikTok, which is wild. They're both social media platforms, completely different.
So different. And like, there's sometimes you can't even get the algorithm to pay attention to what you're trying to tell it to do. Like a Stone, part of Goodwill Podcasting, or Dan, I can get Dan to show up in my feed constantly. Yeah. And I interact with Dan, and I interact with Stone as well because I love his content. And if I do not go to Stone's page directly, and I'll like unfollow him, refollow him, so they think it's a new follow account. They don't give a shit.
No.
And then you go over to Instagram and you look at this and you're like, oh, Dan has like 30,000 followers, 50,000 followers on TikTok. And there's like 6 on Instagram. Yeah. It's not always a direct translation. Not even on YouTube is it a direct translation.
They're all so different. Like everything. It's a completely different playing field from one platform to the next. And, Instagram back in the day, I feel like did function a lot better. I was really into like health fitness. So I had like tens of thousands of followers on Instagram back in the day. And it functioned like how it should function. But Meta took it over and it's changed a lot as the same with Facebook. Facebook, when it first came out, it was, it's the next best thing. And then these bigger companies buy things out and they kind of take the magic away from everything.
Yes, and they kind of double the algorithm where, like, if the algorithm isn't working on Facebook, do you think that they're using a proprietarily different algorithm for Instagram? Probably not majorly, probably minorly
No.
because it's pushing some versus the other. But, like, then you get this stupid minutia stuff where people are like, oh, if you want to share a link on Facebook, you got to put it in the comments of the thing because it'll push it down. And you're like, I don't give a fucking shit about this anymore.
Yeah, it's too much of a hassle. And then I mean, Facebook is no offense to people, Facebook is just trolls nowadays. Truly, it's trolls, and especially for the movie community, 70% of the content on there is fake movies made with AI. And they're like, "Oh my God, they're doing that movie." I'm like, "That you realize that's not a real thing. That's definitely an AI trailer, right?"
Yes, yeah. It's the biggest proponent for dead internet theory. Feels like Facebook right now. You're just like, this is just robots and people talking to nothing.
Yeah. No, it really is. It really. I gave up on Facebook a long.
Yeah.
I have one specifically just because family or older family members are on there.
Nice. You have to. And sometimes you need to look up a business hour on Facebook
Yeah,
for some reason. The business only exists on Facebook.
exactly.
I do wish that Letterboxd could succeed a little bit more and being more of a community. There are certain features about it that just don't, like, you can't directly tag someone. It's hard to have a conversation on Letterboxd, but you can see
Yeah,
things that people have left for you to see.
yeah. I love Letterboxd. I think it's just such a genius little company. I think they're from New Zealand is where they
Yes, they
started
are.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's just they made
Auckland.
it so user friendly, but then if you're a patron, you can change the poster and they give so many
Uh-huh.
fun poster options. And the fact that you can make lists and look at other people's lists, like, oh, what were your favorite movies last year? Like I just love those little things about Letterboxd.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wish it could merge into more of a community thing, like some kind of feature, like if we merge Letterboxd and like some of the good stuff about TikTok, just make them have a baby.
Yeah, some bits of Letterbox feel a little bit performative, where, like, the accounts that they boost the most on their front page are a little bit like a who's who that they've decided
Of
versus,
course.
say, more of an organic, because it's still growing, so I don't feel like they know what they're doing yet. But there
True.
are certain aspects, like they feature really strange lists that
Yeah.
people have made where they're just like, I didn't know you could categorize movies by, like, best kiss in rain scenes, and there's like 50 of them. Like, I didn't know there were this many.
You're like, okay, that's nice. Or they just like those, 1-2 liner little quippy reviews. And I'm here writing like 3 paragraphs about the cinematography and the sound design, but who cares? Who cares?
You are like Marta. I don't know if you know Marta McFly, who was on the show. She was on the show doing Last Unicorn recently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Oh
know
my
that movie.
God.
I love that movie. And we were both lamenting that we are very long form letterbox writers. We are like
Yeah.
for print. But if I do write only 1 or 2 sentences, it's usually because I hated the movie and I'm being like glib to get, like, I don't even want to write a review about it.
No, yeah, because some movies there's really nothing to say. And sometimes it's not even the movies that I hate. Sometimes it's the movies that are like that like 2 to 3 star movie where it's like you're a good movie but like nothing special, but also I don't hate you because then you have some movies where I'm like I hate you so much that I need to name every single thing about it.
On. It is on. It is on.
Yeah, it's like I'm about to break down why you're the worst movie I've ever seen.
What do you think you've seen in the last year?
So there's a horror movie. Me and my best friend went to see it, and I was so excited for it. It's called Rosario.
Okay, I've not heard of this one.
Yeah, and the reason I hated it so much is because it actually had something to say about like the migrant experience, but it did it absolutely horribly. And you being in filmmaking, you would hate it. Like there are scenes where someone will get kicked from one direction, but the camera is incorrect. Like the consistency, the continuity, the girl's lipstick color changes to 3 different colors throughout, and the span of this is in one night. And it sucks because it has David Desmalchian, who I love, and
I
I'm just like,
love him.
maybe he was friends with someone. Maybe he took this role as a favor.
He does do a lot of stuff that is more independent. I bet he is friends.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I think I hated it so much because I think it could have been done well, but it's a lot of it's the filmmaking. there's a part where it's like a dead grandma and she's on a couch. The granddaughter goes up, she uncovers her, and then you see her and she's kind of this grayish color. She hears something in the kitchen, turns away, they go back to the grandma, she's fully covered with the sheet again. And I'm like, pretty sure that didn't just happen. And then the color of the dead grandma, her skin color changed the whole entire film. Sometimes she's gray, sometimes she's tan, and stuff like that just grinds my gears.
Grinds my gears, but I will throw it out there. I have worked some B, D level horror films in my lifetime. I worked on a horror film. It's called Killing Brooke. It's available. You can find it. And
if you're in it, I'm gonna find it.
I often get asked questions about what I was doing in the movie, and I have to be like, this is what they told me we were filming. This is what they edited it into. We were told it was set in the Deep South. They changed it to New England. That's why we all have Southern accents.
I was about to say the accent.
I know. I don't normally have a Southern accent. Just like, and then we would talk to the director constantly being like, hey, continuity, like, for example, that sheet wasn't on. And they would just be like, we'll fix it in post. The fix it in post sentence.
Yeah, other people, I saw some people rate it higher. I don't think I've seen anyone rate it higher than like a 2.5. But there are people, and you see it on TikTok too. There are film critics and there are film reviewers, and a casual reviewer might love Rosario. They might think it, it has some good jump scares. It has this and that. I saw one guy just on the fact that the girl's hot. I'm like, okay, that matters to you. She is hot. She's smoking hot. However, it didn't add to the story at all. Like, she didn't need to be smoking hot. It's just a plus. But there's a lot of people that don't like look in depth into film, like filmmaking and continuity and all these little things. It's just, I liked it, I didn't like it. And that I'm not that kind of person. I will nitpick.
It's hard to hold space because as a filmmaker, you want to encourage people to like and enjoy films and come to let their freak flag fly with whatever flavor they like. But at the same time, there has to be a base level of competency that says this is a successful piece of art. Because if you look at anything else, if I've knit a garment and it doesn't stay on the human being, I don't care if you like it. It failed as a garment. That was my one job. So
yeah, exactly. And we're all going to have a film where we're like, I love that film, but I know it's not a good film. And my example is I will die on the hill that I love Spice World. I fucking love that film. Give me Spice World all day long. The soundtrack, they're not actresses, but they did a good job. Were they playing themselves? Yes. And I'm okay with it.
That is fantastic. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I often say that my favorite film that I think is terrible is Highlander. And then I get into fights because people are like, Highlander is perfect. And I'm like,
they're like, it's great. And you're like,
I'm not going to argue that because I am ultimately saying I love watching it. But Sean Connery plays a Spaniard. And that's just the first thing that's wrong.
They started off wrong with casting.
And yeah, I love that Sean Connery is like, I will never change my voice for whatever character I am. I don't give a shit. I am this guy in everything.
No, Sean Connery is Sean Connery. Always and forever.
So just as we get a little bit more into this, I have these 3 questions I wanted to ask you because we're talking to you as a viewer of film and we're learning a lot about you. And I wanted to ask you these questions. The first one being, what is the first film you remember seeing?
Oh, goodness. I don't know if I remember the first film as in one. And also, side note, I'm indecisive as fuck. So if you ask me for one thing, I'm probably going to give you like 3 to 30.
Okay.
I think the first things I remember watching, though, as a child, all of them were like musicals, basically. Yeah. Because I feel like music sticks with you. You can hear a song, like not hear a song for 20 years, and you'll remember every word once you hear it. So I think that's what sticks in my mind the most. And it would be, I grew up watching The Court Jester from the 1950s. Oh, you've seen it?
So much. Grew up with that one too, and memorizing the pestle with the vessel as the
Girl,
verb is true.
I love it. I suggest that movie to freaking everyone.
It's so good.
Funny. It has something to say. The costumes, the song, and the dance. And Danny Kaye was a dreamboat. Angela Lansbury's first film. Ugh,
Everything about it is fantastic. Great
everything.
choice.
Yes, love it. So like Court Jester, Grease. I watched Grease maybe too many times as a child, or The Labyrinth with David Bowie and those unmistakable balls in those tights.
Yeah, you were either like the androgyny made you gay or the codpiece made you very straight.
Yeah, I still don't know where I lie, really.
Fair enough.
To each their own. I'm just like, everyone's beautiful.
That's
But
it.
yeah, it's just always these films with music, and I am a musical girly, so just give me all the songs with music. But those are the movies I think I remember the most when I was younger, because if you experience any child, it's just once they see something they like, it's again, again, again. And I did that to my parents with all those movies. I'm like, can we watch Grease again? But you just watched it. Can we watch it again?
If you talk to my sister right now, their daughter just discovered Wicked and wants to be in musical theater. Like, that's her thing. She wants to be a musical theater actress now. She's like 8. So sometimes we're talking to my sister and they're like, listen, if I have to hear this song fucking again, I'm going to lose my God. And in the background, I'll hear singing.
Yeah, you're like, I know that song all too well. And not even gonna lie, I was just singing Wicked in my car yesterday. Have you seen it on stage though?
So here's the thing about me is that I grew up being allowed to watch very old musicals, but also very much told that like the newer musicals were not like, they're not worth, you can't. So, and my family really hated The Wizard of Oz. So until last January, I had never seen The Wizard of Oz. And until Wicked came out as a movie this year, I had never even heard a song from Wicked.
Oh my goodness, you're an anomaly.
And I'm American. And people are just like, yes, because you are what? Like Russian or Mongolian or something. And I'm like, no, I grew up here and everything. I just skipped it. And I will admit, I don't like the original Wizard of Oz, but I
Really? Okay.
fucking love Wicked. It fixed everything I didn't like about Wizard of Oz. And I think I'm just too old to have, because I was like, well, the way that they're cheating, and people are like, you're not supposed to watch for the politics. I'm like, but I want more politics. And that's when people are like, well, if you want more politics,
Wicked.
and you're Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, Wicked has so much to say. Can I tell you that I just love that Cynthia Erivo was cast as Elphaba? People were in such an uproar that it was a Black woman, and she got a lot of hate for it. And I'm like, okay, first off, the character is green. So if we're really going to get on it, someone green should have been cast. And I don't think they exist. So there we go. We'll start there. But
metaphor for Black.
Yeah.
Elphaba is technically playing a Black character this whole time.
Exactly. But on stage, always been a white woman to play Elphaba. So to really see that, it was so beautiful to see. And it just hits different when she's singing about these things. You're like, my heart. But the music, the casting was fantastic. Even I was a little iffy on Ariana Grande being Glinda. I mean, musically, she's talented. She can sing the alphabet with impressions. But I was like, how is she going to do this? Because we don't really see her act in a lot, except from, back in the day when she was acting as, she was a child actor. And she just went so deep into music, and she's perfect. She's the perfect.
And that character she played on that Disney show was very vapid. So it was hard to be like her acting is bad. Well, the character she was playing was an idiot in a show where it was being groomed by someone who wound up becoming a known sexual predator. So there's like layers on layers of we can't use this information.
Exactly. She did the whole cast. I'm so excited for Wicked for Good. There's 2 new songs. I'm just already like sat for it. And side note, I actually saw Wicked maybe 8 months before everyone else, because I do a lot of test screenings. I've been doing test audience screenings for like 15 years.
That's so cool. Oh my God, that's a lot to sit on. You're like, well, guys, guess what? It's amazing.
It's not. Well, I also saw Sinners early. I saw Sinners in November, and to sit on it is when you see a good movie, it's so hard to not tell everyone. But of course, they have you sign an NDA until it's released. So I'm just here like, oh my God, this is going to be one of the best movies of the year. I can't tell anyone about it. So when it came out, I was just like, oh, finally. And then I saw that 3 times in theaters. I saw Wicked 3 times in theaters. I was there for the Wicked sing along, even though I can't sing, but I still did. I'm half Filipino, and everyone's like, "You're Filipino, you can sing," and I'm like, the other half kicked in. I cannot.
My dad is a professional country musician. I can't play an instrument.
The gift didn't pass to you.
No, I got my mom, who's a knitwear designer. So if I walk past someone wearing a piece of clothing, I'm like, yeah, I can make that. I have the whole pattern downloaded. What do you need? So
but if they're like, carry it too, and you're fucked.
Okay, so can we get someone else to sing it? Actually, no. I think my husband says I'm being horrible on myself because I did write and record the theme song to this, and people say it's okay. They say it's okay.
Yes, it's cute. It's a cute little intro.
Thank you. That is me singing.
See, you're too hard on yourself. Me, I'm not. I'm a fantastic singer when the audience is just me.
I'm also allergic to alcohol, so I never have the liquid courage that people have when they're singing karaoke.
Yeah, I don't drink, so I'm right there with you. It was so funny. We were at South by Southwest, the film festival, and I don't know if you know Kev, Real for Real podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we're going out, and he wants to do just bar one night in Austen. So we're all there for it. So we have our little group, and then he's like, "Crystal, do you want to drink?" And I'm just like, "No, I don't really drink." And he's like, "You don't drink?" And I'm like, "No, it's just it just never I never went through that, you know." People go through the drunk phase where they're like, "Oh, I just want to drink all the time." Just never my thing. And I'm like, don't worry, I match the vibe. If the vibe is there, I don't need alcohol. We're like going through it. Everyone else drink, and I'm just right there along. He's like, "Oh, you really don't need the alcohol. You're good. You're just fine the way you are." Yep, I'm good. I am courageous in myself. Big personality.
Well, I have Asian flush, so I just never been able to. I tried. I gave it the college go, but it didn't work for me. And I'm the same way. People are like, "We're all going to be drinking," but I do smoke like my wheat and weed. So I'm like, don't worry, I'll be in this cloud over here. Well, I'm going to be fine.
You're like, I'm enhanced. All is well.
It's fine.
Perfect.
My other question, what movie do you think you have seen more than any other movie? Like maybe it's your comfort movie, you throw it on all the time.
Oh, you know what? I'll exclude any holiday movies because those we see, it's like, you know, those annual watches.
Yeah.
I'll watch all the time. But I think the one movie where I've seen it just a disgusting amount of time, it's Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
It's my bedtime movie. Like if I want to put, I have a few movies where it's like I'll put it on to sleep because it's comforting. I can close my eyes. I hear, you know, oh, like breakfast, all these things, and it's just in your mind because you've seen it so many times. So it's probably Fellowship. I love Lord of the Rings. I saw them all midnight theater openings. I miss midnight openings, by the way. Bring them back. Bring them back.
I am, so MovieRuntime isn't my name because when I originally started, I was running on a treadmill for the duration of every movie that I reviewed.
No, I remember that.
I'll do that, but nobody gives a shit. So I don't talk about it that much. So very few movies that I will recommend you watch the extended cut. Lord of the Rings is one of the few movies where I'm like, literally everything that they cut does a disservice. You should watch the fullest extent possible. Yeah, it is perfect.
A lot of people are like, they're so long, and I'm like, but it's worth it. That's all I watch is the extended editions because you need to.
It makes it better. It makes you understand the story better if you have not read the original material. We did all 3 of the movies for Movie Night Extravaganza, and we got to talk to the guy who was one of the original creators of Horde, who worked on the VFX for it as well. And it's just like everything you find out about it and the passion that went into making that movie. It's great, I think, as filmmakers to throw on whenever you want to, because it reminds you, like, here's the magic you are looking for. Here's why you want to make movies.
Exactly. It is a movie for people that love movies.
Was there a movie that triggered your desire to want to be in or make movies? I know the first time I saw Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, I knew I had to be an actress.
My Fair Lady is one of my favorite films of all time. Audrey Hepburn, I have maybe maybe 10 books on her because
Yeah.
I love her. I love her life. And
Yeah.
she was just like, that's like a Hollywood star, which we really don't have anymore. I just love her so much. So she's an actress that made me like really into film because she's just so multifaceted and a good at the end of the day also if someone is a good human being, I love you more. You can be talented and an asshole, I don't like you as much. You know, but there is one specific movie and I can't well, I mean, I can tell you why, but maybe not at the time. There's one movie that got me into writing that made me want to write films, and it's
Okay.
Good Will Hunting.
Yes, great choice.
I just loved that film, and it's so weird because I think I was like 11 when that came out, so I can't tell you why an 11-year-old saw Good Will Hunting and was like, I want to be a writer, but it was me.
So very much about like men finally
Yeah,
addressing emotions that they might have.
and grief and the self-discovery. Like I said, can I explain why? No, but the writing in it, phenomenal. The Robin Williams monologue, Robin Williams just in general, my heart, R.I.P. Miss him. And just, I don't know, I think learning more about it too as I got older, just like the fact that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote that so young, and they've been friends since they were like 8 years old. Just the fact that you're both just happen to be so talented at writing and directing and acting, and you came up together, like what the fuck? Like
Hate
the
that or love it.
chances, the
Yeah.
chances of that happening is just wild. So I think as I got older and I looked more into writing, and I love the dialogue in that film. I feel like it's smart,
Realistic
but it's
dialogue.
also like deep, but it's also natural, and just the character dynamics between Ben and Matt, and then Minnie Driver and Matt and Robin. Well, you had all these little facets to that film that just make it so wonderful. So why at 12 or 11, I think, yeah, I don't know what it did it for me, but it still holds up to this day at least.
Say I was definitely struck to the point where I remember distinctly the first movie I saw Robin Williams playing dramatic in. It was Awakenings, where he's a doctor working for a bunch of people who have
Yeah,
comas, and De
yeah,
Niro is in it. And
huh?
there's something about we all know Robin Williams is an amazing comedic actor.
Yeah,
We
it was a
witnessed him
Sapphire.
be the genie in Aladdin. You know,
Hmm.
it was kind of like okay, but to see the nuance and the degree to which he is a really good actor kind of stunned me. So you could have been responding to that, I think, or even just the first time someone that age sees a movie that is dealing with a lot more complex emotions than we normally get
Yeah.
given at that age.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as you get older too, and I think kind of that, time frame of like preteen and stuff, you're starting to pick things up more. Like, oh, that actually means a lot more than I would have realized a few years ago. Like the depth, because it's like Inside Out too. You get a lot more emotions when you get to certain ages. You're like, oh, now I'm embarrassed and now I have anxiety, and all those definitely hit me as a child. So
It's yeah, and the relatability of that, finding out that other people feel the way you feel when you're adolescent is a
yeah,
huge part of the like whether or not you're going to make it as an adult, because if you continue to feel isolated and like the only person, it's going to be real bad for you. Which is
yeah,
why I
no,
like the show Big
childhood
Mouth.
stuff. Yeah, childhood stuff sticks. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is a really, really great segue into talking about Pride and Prejudice, because here we're talking about Good Will Hunting, and this is the first thing that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote. They're not nepo babies. They had to come at it from an angle. And here we
yeah.
have Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, which
Mhm.
gets published as her second novel in I think it's 13 or 15, 1815. But it's technically the first thing she ever wrote, because she wrote it when she was 20. They couldn't get it
Yeah.
published, and they self-published it later on after the success of Sense and Sensibility.
Mhm.
So it's like another similar thing. And with this movie, 2005's version of it, say, compared to the Colin Firth miniseries, which is the only other Pride and Prejudice I've seen, this one is a lot more naturalistic dialogue, and it's a little bit more like gritty in the kind of way that Good Will Hunting has its dialogue, and it feels believable.
Yeah, exactly. No, Pride and Prejudice. I saw it for the 20th anniversary for the first time. And I saw it on a whim. I remember I was at work and I was like, oh, I don't feel like, when you just don't feel like going straight home after work. I was
Mm-hmm.
like on my AMC app. I'm like, what's playing? I'm like, oh, Pride and Prejudice is like right after I get off work and I'm by the movie theater. I'm like, I've never seen it, but let's see it. I'm like, I'm going to go see it because if I'm going to see something for a first time, what better than in a movie theater, which is just one of my happy places. Streaming is cool. However, the movie theater to me will always be a superior experience. So I'm
It's
so glad
hallowed ground. Yeah.
a big screen because Pride and Prejudice, it is a big screen movie. 100%.
Yeah. Especially this version of it with the director. It's his directorial debut, but he was trying to make so much of it look like Vermeer paintings that you get these sweeping wide shots of these fantastic locations. I didn't know until I looked into it. The production and costume design people who did this were the ones who did Barbie.
They were the same Barbie ones?
Same people who worked on Barbie, which is pretty impressive to me because I'm like, wow, this has got it feels like such a full world. Yeah, Jacqueline Duran, who did Barbie, also did this. She also did Greta Gerwig's Little Women. That's how she gets over onto Barbie because they worked over. The
Together.
crossover happens right there.
Exactly. You know what? And it makes sense too, because even though they're two very different aesthetics, they're both very detailed and very feminine. Like
Uh-huh.
a little shoulder, the ruffles and the little impure waist and it
Mhm.
was so feminine and beautiful with the costumes. Even the men, just everything was fitted so well. So that makes sense that she worked on something like Barbie because Barbie also very detailed.
Yeah, very full worlds where like you really truly believe that this is the time period that we're in.
Everything was so immersive in Pride and Prejudice. Like you really
Mhm.
feel like sucked in to that world. And then the aesthetic of it is so like it's dreamy and whimsical, but it's also very
Mhm.
like pretty and moody. I think moody is like probably the best way I can describe it because you
Yeah.
go in and it goes along with the story too, because it's a moody story. Everyone's in a mood for sure.
Yes. So the reason you didn't see it when it first came out wasn't out of any pride or prejudice. It
No.
was just you didn't catch it. Or do you like period pieces? Do you tend to stay away from romances?
I feel like it's a hard thing to do well. Romance is hard to do well. And then also period pieces, I just have to be in the mood. But I think the thing with Pride and Prejudice I have a long list of movies that just are so hyped up because people love them so much. And I honestly put them off because I'm afraid that I'll hate it. Like it sometimes it lives higher up in my head, even though I haven't seen it. So I'll put it off because I don't want to like have everyone talk about, oh, they love it. It's all this. And then I watch it and I'm like, womp, womp.
I haven't seen Alphaville yet because of that. I'm going to watch it this week, but every time somebody talks about it, I'm like, what if I don't like Goddard that much?
I know, because I'm just like, are you gonna judge me? Am I an imposter?
Do they come and take my film critic badge?
I think they do. Thankfully, and
Too?
thankfully a lot of the ones that I've watched that I put off, I end up being on the same train. Like I watched Fight Club last year and I was like, oh, that is actually a really freaking cool movie. Or Interstellar I put off watching. And I watched that in
Oh,
IMAX
wow.
and I was
Yeah.
just gorgeous. All the hype, the soundtrack, the score, everything. The
And
hype
it
was real.
just both of those are very funny correlative choices because I think of those as movies that are horrifically accurate to the science they're depicting to the point where if you watch Interstellar with someone who is a quantum physicist,
Mhm.
they're like, wow, this is actually based on concepts that we have for time travel, which is a thing you're like, we have concepts for time travel. And then if you watch Fight Club, which my very close friend Ben did with his father, who is a professional psychiatrist, they made it like
Oh.
20 minutes in before my friend's father turned to him and said, I'm not watching the rest of this. They're the same person.
He's like, I know this.
Now this
This
is
is
work. This
obviously
is
what it
work for me. Not watching it.
is. No one wants to watch work, so
Which is like, man, then they did their job right. I'm sorry you hate it, but you can't review this on Letterboxd as bad, Dad, because they nailed it.
yeah. If anything, you got to give them a better review because they did the homework. But yeah,
Exactly.
but that's why I put off Pride and Prejudice. I'm just like romances. It's really hard to nail.
Huh?
You see so many straight to streaming romances nowadays, or it's that very YA type of romance that, you know, they fit this formula and you know how it's going to end. But Pride and Prejudice, it's like an OG enemies to lovers, and I love it. I'm just like, I love when a trope is done well. And this enemies to lovers and Pride and Prejudice, I remember I recorded myself going into Pride and Prejudice just to put it in like my Instagram story. And I'm like, let's figure out who the fuck Mr. Darcy is. Because you hear Mr. Darcy, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And this whole beginning half of Pride and Prejudice, I'm just like, fuck Mr. Darcy. I'm like, who is this brooding rich man? I'm like, he is cold. What is this one of the best love stories of all time? And then you get to the third act. And then you're sitting here and you're like, am I full of Pride and Prejudice? I love him.
Yeah, and even to the point where they let you simmer in it. And when he says to her, I love you despite your low class and the fact that I shouldn't, I'm still totally obsessed with you. And I'm sitting there like, fuck this guy straight to hell.
Yeah,
and she
you're
yells
like,
at
now
him.
you're telling me this? I hate you.
And you're like, thank God she yells at him then.
He does. It's beautiful. And it's in the rain.
Which apparently was ad-lib. So a lot of what is different from this Pride and Prejudice and other people's Pride and Prejudice is what either you love about it or you hate about it. It's the same thing. You're either on board for this or you're not. They ad-libbed a lot of the experience, and they wanted to go for a grittier, more realistic representation, specifically of the Bennets. And that's why you get all these in rain, in mud scenes. Those were not supposed to be that way. And it was actually raining. So Keira Knightley gets a pretty bad cold because of this.
She did. It was worth it. I don't know how she obviously is still alive and well. So it was worth it, because the fact that it's raining and you have this he's just like spilling out everything. Who says I love you ardently? Who says that? Mr. Darcy does. And I was there for it. But then also, as he's freaking spilling out all his emotions, I'm like, wait, we don't like you. You're not a good guy. And then you have this reveal all the way throughout, and you're like, oh, maybe I was just judging him this whole time. I didn't know.
Yeah, the rain scene feels like John Cusack with the stereo. Which is for me a big like, oh, I love that movie. Like,
Which one was that? Say Anything?
Say Anything, yeah. John Cusack is always in the rain when he's professing his love. You could make like a 5-minute cut.
It's the best time to do it. Like, can it start raining and someone just pull up and tell me how much they love me? I don't care if you do. I just want to feel it for the moment.
Need the feeling. Like, so yeah, in fact, the scene when at the end when he's coming through the moors to tell the like ardently lovely and he's got the like open shirt and the big long waistcoat behind him, also ad-libbed. MacFayden did a lot of his own ad-libbing, and that was like, why don't we just tape this? There was a scene just before that where Keira Knightley's character like walks across a bridge, and it's beautiful, and it's like 3 minutes long. And I remember turning to my husband and being like, oh, they probably could have cut that scene. And then it cuts directly to MacFayden walking in the moors towards us. And I was like, this scene you fucking leave in, though. You leave the whole, this can be 10 minutes long, please.
It's so beautiful. And at first you're just like, there's, all this fog and mist, and it's a long walk. And I'm here for every second of it. I'm like, okay, one step at a time. I'm here for it. And then when they get close together and then the sun peeks through, I'm like, oh my God, it's filmmaking genius.
Yeah. When people say that they don't know what the female gaze is as opposed to the male gaze, I'm like, this right here, this. You could hate Mr. Darcy still at this point and be like, I don't know, maybe we give him a chance.
Yeah, marriage, sure. Why not? Why not? It's so beautifully done. I think one of the scenes where I'm just in tears sobbing is when Elizabeth goes to her dad and is just like, oh, I love him. And he's like, you love him? We all thought you hated him. And she's like, no, I love him. And then he's tearing. We have Donald Sutherland tearing up and she's tearing up. And it's just that like father-daughter moment where you're just like, oh, he just really cares about her happiness. Like it's not the money, because you have the mother just secondhand embarrassing them the whole entire freaking film because she's wanting to sell off her daughters, which during the time, that's how it was. You didn't get a son. you have 5 girls, and the best you can hope is that they marry well. So we understand the mother. However, she is a lot. But the dad, he just really cares about her happiness. So when they're just tearing up, I'm just here like, I'm just a wreck. I'm just a wreck.
Yes. I think that scene is a really, really great scene. I do find the mother and the younger sisters, I think it's Jenna Malone and Karen Mulligan. I love her. Promising Young Woman, amazing film.
Yeah,
Because they're allowed to
agreed.
ad lib, specifically the Bennett scenes and specifically the Bennett dining room scenes had almost no pre-scripted dialogue. They do come over a little bit too giggly, too disarray, too like, hey, can you rein this back in? It doesn't match the rest of the scene. But in that one scene, you see Donald Sutherland finally laugh like the rest of the family, and it does kind of bookend it so beautifully.
Yeah.
Did you see the American ending, or did the movie end there for you?
It was the American ending. So I got the Mrs. Darcy, which I knew that there was the 2 endings. I didn't know what they were before I went in. I just always heard there were 2 endings. So I'm glad that I got the ending that I got because I wanted that. Even though it's cheesy, the American ending, it is a little corny with the Mrs. Darcy and the little kisses but I was here for it. I loved it. It could have ended either way, but I'm glad I got the American ending for that one.
I saw the British ending. I did not see the American ending until I actually had to put it up on YouTube for this conversation because I'm like, what is everyone talking about? I've never seen that ending.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am 2 wolves torn because there's a part of me that's like, well, it does feel very strange to end this entire story on the father who's really bad. Like, I'm glad that it's a bookend and I'm glad that he feels like all of his daughters have been dealt with. But it really feels like a weird place to end this.
It is.
But also, it's not very feminist to end it this way. So, I don't know.
I like the American ending because I like to see that they were actually together and happy because a lot of their dynamic was a lot of push and pull throughout the whole thing. They both had to really like emotionally grow within themselves to actually connect and find each other. So I think it was nice to see them actually together. Like, I know who I am, I know who you are, we do have these feelings and love for one another. And it was kind of nice to see a softer side of Mr. Darcy because he is so, like emotionally reserved throughout most of the film. So it's nice to see like, okay, this is what you fell for. He's not just cold and brooding the whole entire time. However, I did love the yearning. Like, give me all the yearning. And I feel like that's what's missing in a lot of romance and stuff nowadays. I want that yearning for a person, where like you have to have them in a non-serial killer stalker way. I want someone to be obsessed with me, not that obsessed with me, but just really like, when you really want somebody, you know what I mean? And I feel like we don't get that enough, or we don't get the like earned intimacy, because back in the day they can't touch. You can't touch, you can't kiss anything until you're married. And that little like hand flex that they have in the film where you feel it, you're like, you guys did like nothing basically, but I felt all of it like so deeply. I felt it more than I felt in a sex scene in a movie nowadays from a hand.
That hand flex scene was also ad-libbed. That was an actual reaction from MacFayden from doing the scene. And he actually says in interviews later on, like Cosmo, he didn't really think very much of it, but seeing what it's become, it is such a clutch point to what makes this a different telling of this story, is that it is all about the smoldering and the almost, for lack of a better word, it's kind of like the edging version of this romance story where we keep getting very close, but you can't. And that like burning for someone. And I do have to admit, there's a part of me that watched this story and thought like, it's really great that they grow and they need to grow, because what is happening here is she meets him. She says no. He keeps pursuing her. She keeps saying no. He keeps pursuing her. And she didn't know her mind that well, so she actually meant yes. And I'm not a big fan of romance stories where the no just needs to be a little bit more chaste.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see that in something like 500 Days of Summer. It's like
Yes.
she told him up front.
Mhm.
You know, she told Tom, she's like, you know what, I'm not looking for this. And he just kept trying, and he has this fantasy in his
Mhm.
head. You know, he keeps going and going. And we do get Mr. Darcy like still pursuing her, but doing it in a way where he's helping her secretively along the way. He was never like, I'm doing this and this for you, so do you want to be with me now? He's just always doing things, and she's finding out over time. Mr.
Mhm.
Darcy was playing the long game.
Yeah. It's really, really, you hit the nail on the head of why it works. First of all, they're both changing, growing as adults because she's 2021 in this story as it's going on. And, you know, she's learning to be less prejudicial and prideful, and he's learning to do the same.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the fact that he never wants her to find out the things that he's done to help her sisters is why he's growing. He's, as a man, trying to make up for the mistakes that he's made in his judging wrongly already, instead of just like, I need to make my girlfriend happy again. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's nuance. That's
Yeah,
important.
exactly. And he does it genuinely too. And I think that's part of
Mhm.
not boasting about it. It's like he really cares. He knows she cares so much about her family and her sisters. So what does he do? He helps out her sister. And then, you know, we also find out that he's actually a really good best friend because although he's keeping, what is his name? Is it Belling? His best friend is
Oh,
redheaded.
God, the Benleys? Yeah, something like Billing, I think, but I'm not
Yeah.
positive.
So, you know,
Charles.
him and Jane, the older sister, are obviously they're connected. They have a thing. But Mr. Darcy felt like his friend loved her so much more than Jane loved him. And he didn't want him getting into a relationship where, you know, she's possibly in it for money because obviously the mom
Mhm.
has a big mouth and is making it come off that way. Even though we find out they really do just have a connection and they love each other. But, you know, he's trying to protect his best friend. He's helping with her sister. He's doing and then he obviously is also a big family man as well, where I think they have a strong connection because he loves his little sister so much. And that's something you see through the whole thing. Like, oh, he really wanted to see his sister. He takes care for his younger sister and everything he's been through. So it's interesting to I think they make the audience realize that we all have pride and prejudice as well as we're watching it. And I think it's the most genius thing to do because not
Mhm.
only characters have these things, but as an audience, you realize, oh, we all have these things because I was judging these things all along as well.
Yes, absolutely. And even further than that, as an audience member watching it in the time period that we're watching it, we run the risk of, well, do I review it with the historical context of the people at the time, or do I review it with presentism, where I'm like, well, you know, women should blah, blah, blah. You're like, well, women at this time period had a lot of constraints. So what she shouldn't have done, I'm not really sure I can fully speak to.
Exactly.
You know, so like, is this a romantic? I think the biggest question I have about this film is this a feminist film? Is the story even a feminist story? Because it's so very much centered around getting married.
Hmm. I think it still is in the sense that I think Elizabeth's character was very progressive for the time.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if it wasn't, she would have married Collins in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
he's the one that's going to inherit their whole entire home for their family. But you know, in the end, she's like, "You're not for me. I don't have those feelings towards you. You obviously don't have those feelings for me because you straight up said that my sister was hotter, basically." And I
Mm-hmm.
like your choice, you know, and she always puts herself first and her family first. And I feel like it is feminist, especially if you think of it in that time, because you're supposed to listen to a man, you're supposed to listen to your parents, and you're supposed to just get married when you can. And that's why Elizabeth's best friend ends up marrying Collins. She's like, I'm already what 25 or 27. I'm a burden to my parents. I don't want to be a spinster, so I'm just going to marry him. And it's like, in that sense, it's like, is that the most feminist thing? Maybe not, because but you have to do what you have to do in that time frame. But Elizabeth didn't do that. She said no. She's like, thanks for proposing, but I'm going to run away now. And she did.
And Elizabeth is also 20, and Charlotte is 27.
Yeah.
That's a big difference in that time period.
Uh,
And even that particular character gets a huge revamp in this version compared to almost any other version. And the person who revamps it is Emma Thompson. She has an uncredited writing. She wrote portions of this script. She didn't take credit for it, so she doesn't show up on the IMDb, but she shows up in other places. Her work on Sense and Sensibility obviously made people want to work with her again. So she writes the whole kind of interaction where that character is saying, "Don't you dare judge me." And they make her more relatable, and they make you understand that
Why
she
she does
chose
it.
this for a reason, as opposed to like, oh, that someone else took the bomb on that one. He's such a stupid idiot. And some dumb woman got married because she didn't know any better. Like, no, this is a real thing. And you kind of have to feel bad for her, but you also kind of have to look at, she made the best situation. She seems pretty happy when we go visit her.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, I think it's make the best of what you have, which I mean, it sucks, but it's, you know, we've all been through things at different times. Times are different, you know, from when our parents were, you know, were young and in love to, you know, how young and in love is in 2025, which the whole different, you know, aspects, generation to generation. But I feel like Elizabeth is she's very progressive for that time period that they're in.
She's so witty. She's so self-possessed.
Yeah.
She's writing, you know, when most people aren't writing who are women. But, you know, people want, I think, a feminist character to not just point out that the world that they're in is not feminist. They want her to change it somehow. And that's just never going to be possible in a period piece film. In fact, if you do that, it makes it seem not very realistic to the time period. That wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
To such an extent that we need to look at the fact that Jane Austen was never credited for writing during her lifetime. This book was published by a lady, with Sense and Sensibility was by a lady, and then Pride and Prejudice was by the author of Sense and Sensibility. She died, and then they announced that she wrote these books.
Yeah, and people forget that women couldn't write. Like, you couldn't be an author. You have to take a man's name, or, you know, hide behind something else, because you can't say you're a woman, because they're just going to judge you. If they know you're a woman, they're going to be like, "Oh, it's probably trash." You're not even going to get a fair shake, honestly. I think people have this idea of, you know, feminism in our time, but you really have to look at things of how was it back then. It's very different. It's like how they changed the end of My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm fine with either one. I get both of them. I know why they did it the original way. And, you know, of course, I think I'm tied to the original way just because I grew up with it. But I was fine with how they changed it as well. You know, I get wanting to change some things, but I don't think everything needs to be changed, because, you know, it was what it was in the times. Like, a lot of John Hughes movies don't hold up. A lot of them are very problematic. Do I still love them? Yeah.
I think anybody who likes comedies from the 80s did not prepare for how much rape there were in them, for lack of a better word. You're like, that's not really cool.
Yeah. No. So much essay. Just the depictions of women. Or you take something like the original Roadhouse movie, the way they talked about women in that, you're just like, they're like, "Oh, I love that movie." And, like, you know what? At the time, there are some of those movies where I do love it. Do I agree with it now? If it came out that way now, would I like it? Probably not. But I watched it back then when it was great. You know, something like 16 Candles. I loved that when I was growing up. But a lot of them don't hold up to, you know, how it is now.
And in a way that kind of brings up an interesting point with any of these movies where we're doing a film version of a pretty old book that people have attempted multiple times. Where, like, if you don't change something, why make the movie at all? So when we're looking at why people may have avoided this particular Pride and Prejudice and why people hate this particular Pride and Prejudice, a lot of times people say that it's a little too schmutty and it doesn't have a lot of the satirical dialogue from the original book because they let the actors ad-lib to make it sound more realistic.
Yeah.
To me, it just feels like, well, there are two different versions. If you want that, watch the Colin Firth one. If you want something that's a little bit more like Bodice Ripper, if you want like what probably inspired the beginning of Bridgerton, let's be completely honest. I kept seeing Bridgerton in this thousands and thousands of times. You can go for this. I don't think one is inherently better or worse, but there are people who feel very purist about Jane Austen's text. I am not an Austen, like a deep researcher of Austen. How do you feel about that?
So I haven't watched the miniseries, the 95, but I do know a lot of people love it because they say it is more true to the book. But I feel like that's what we see a lot of the time when you have a miniseries. You know what I mean? You have more time to develop the characters, put in all these arcs, and really delve deep into it because 6 hours compared to 2 hours is a big difference. It's a huge difference. And that's why
Huge.
we see some book adaptations where it's like, oh, I really hope they do that as a series instead of as a movie to condense it. But I think this is what I like. I am going to go back and watch the 90s miniseries because I do want to see the differences. I do hear it is, it's a lot wittier. It is a lot more satirical, and I like that. So I do want to go back and watch it. But I think what they did well with the 2005 movie is I feel like the visuals are a character in itself
Yes.
because
Oh my.
the way they film it, like just a stare and a glance or the hand blacks or just these little visual things that they did, it added so much more than the dialogue could have in the time constraints that they have for a film.
Absolutely. It's such that nuance. I mean, they're both really great period pieces with really great costumes and set. But there's something about, and again, this is a directorial debut for Wright. And we also have a cinematographer whose other works include
What's the other works?
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Love
and
it.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Oh, okay. A little different. Would have never guessed. Grew up on Are You Afraid of the Dark, but that to Pride and Prejudice 2005 is a sweeping difference.
It's not Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's the other one. It's the book where they have the
Goosebumps?
horrible pictures. No, it's like it was the one that we had when we were children where they had these really just terrible, scary stories to tell in the dark. It had the terrible pen drawings.
Yeah, got it.
To that one.
The cinematography is just every still can be a painting. Everything meant something. And I loved it from the fog and, the rain. You get these sweeping, like, nature shots where I'm just like, oh my God, put me there. Put me into that, please.
Yes. And when you look at Joe Wright, the director of this, versus Roman Austen, the cinematographer, it's Wright. It's absolutely Wright who did that because he later goes on and does Anna Karenina and Atonement and The Darkest Hour. And I told you what Austen goes on and does. So if you have to stop and say, like, who was this? And a lot of times people say, I don't know what the director did. The director was the cinematographer. I really feel very firmly that this was the director. Yes.
Yeah.
And the director, super important.
He actually directed one of my favorite episodes of Black Mirror.
Which one? I didn't know that.
Nosedive, the one with Bryce Dallas Howard, where they're like going off of likes and follows. He directed that episode. Yeah. I feel like he's a man that just gets the female gaze. And Pride and Prejudice and all of those films compared to Nosedive is still a female gaze Black Mirror episode because it's how women are navigating through likes and follows and friendships. And Bryce Dallas Howard does a fantastic job in that episode. But when I was looking back through his stuff and I was like, oh, he did Black Mirror, what episode? And it was the Nosedive episode.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's really funny how different the view is in this than the Firth one for me. It's just because the Firth one kind of implements Colin Firth as like sexy in the world. That makes him the romance icon that he goes on to be, and he winds up being in every romantic British movie. He's basically their Katherine Heigl.
Yeah.
And yet, and this is a super testament because I had not seen the movie until after I saw Succession. So to see MacFayden,
I haven't watched Succession yet.
Okay, so I can't tell you how different his character is in Succession. He is such a shigget. He is not attractive. He is ineffectual. And to see him in this movie, they did it. Because I had in my head this loser guy, and he comes out through the moors, and I'm like, I don't care. That's not the same guy. They've done it. I even know the wig is a full wig because he's mostly bald and like expecting an American accent to come out. You're like, oh, I got it. Yep, the British guy.
Yeah, okay. I need to watch that one. So something I did watch last night because I knew we were doing this today. I was like, you know what? Let me watch a different version. I watched Pride and Prejudice Zombies.
To bring that up, did you know that they've done something? Yeah, how'd you feel about that?
It's something. It's something. There are entertaining parts, I'm not gonna lie, but it's like one of those things where it's like it's so bad I'm actually entertained because it has the story. We have the characters, it has the stories. Of course, they have to take other liberties because it's a world where there's zombies. But it's actually kind of funny. But I'm just like looking at these girls in these period piece dresses, and then I'm watching them lift up a dress and pull out like a katana because, back in the 18th century, if you're fighting zombies, you either learn your martial arts from the Chinese or the Japanese. Those are the two,
That's
the
all
two,
you got.
those are the only fighting styles that were allowed. So
Yeah,
it was a wild ride.
I'm very obsessed with zombies. Have been for a very long time.
Love zombies.
I always do with the asterisk fighting zombies. I am not one of those people who wants to go to a pub crawl and dress up as a zombie. We're trying to stop that. So I've been given many copies of the book Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Yeah.
And upon actually reading it, it is pretty much like someone just shot in zombie parts.
Yeah.
And then the book is the same, and the book is the same,
Yep.
and the book is the same. And you're like,
Yep.
okay.
You're like, okay, all right. And then it's like, it's interesting zombies too, because you're just like, oh, you're not a full zombie until you eat human brains. Totally makes sense. And then you got Wickham. He turns out he was a zombie the whole time. I'm just, oh, okay.
What
And
a
then the
twist.
zombies, yeah, these zombies that aren't full zombies, of course they meet up in a church for pig's brains. It was just the most wild thing. And I wouldn't even tell people don't watch it because some of it's so bad it's actually hilarious. But it's funny that they keep the characters in the story and just like have these inserts of zombies. Like, oh, I'm gonna go over here, zombies. Okay, love scene, this, that. Same as the book, zombies.
Zombies. Just keep you awake, keep you going.
Exactly.
The story
Maybe they'll do a
itself.
vampire version next time.
Oh my God, yes. The story itself can be very dry. It can feel a little bit like, oh, yes, well. And like
Mhm.
nobody ever winds up saying anything. It's very, very British. So to throw in the zombies, I get it. And I think Pride and Prejudice is definitely a story that you wind up seeing without realizing, like, oh, Bridget Jones's Diary is just Sense and Sensibility. They keep reskinning it for us.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember that if you've never seen Pride and Prejudice and you go back and you watch it, it can feel cliched, but it invented the cliche. It's one of
Exactly.
those first times these two lovers who hated each other wind up liking each other, which feels so cliched. And I was talking to my husband last night. I was like, that's such a terrible cliche. And then there's this long pause because we remembered that when we first met each other, we fucking hated each other. And then we
Did
learned to
you?
respect each other. And it's
Oh,
dinner.
oh no, you are enemies to lovers.
So it's like, yeah, this is a cliched story, but it's also an actual representation of how humans interact with one another.
Yeah. Yeah. The same thing, lovers to friends happens all the time. So a lot of people
Yeah.
start out as friends first and then it goes somewhere else. You know what I mean? So, but it's like with Pride and Prejudice, it's like, is it really cliche if you're the first? You know what I mean? Is it?
Yeah.
It's like you're the outlier because you started the cliche, so therefore you are not cliche.
I mean, Hitchcock would get accused of being cliched later on in his life for using the exact same film techniques he was lauded for inventing like 10 years earlier. Like, he's still just doing what he do. That's called being an auteur director.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Directors like that, it's credit to them. You know what I mean? You started it. Now all these people want to do the same thing that you do, and now they do it so much that it's a cliche.
Yes. Yeah, I think period pieces often wind up being thought of as like, oh, I already know what it's going to be. I don't need to see Pride and Prejudice. It's people in dresses humping about and then kissing. And you're like, oh, no. And I think like Wes Anderson has the Phoenician Scheme coming out now. And a lot of people want to say the same thing. You see one Wes Anderson, you've seen them all. And it's like, that's very dismissive.
Yeah, exactly. They're all different stories. I think everyone's just so set on his aesthetic always being what it is, because you can just see a trailer and you can be like, oh, that's a Wes Anderson film, but you can't tell me what it's about. It's going to be a different story and different characters
Mm-hmm.
because he has an aesthetic and he does have a similar group of actors that he sticks with, but most big directors do. Nolan has his actors, Scorsese has his actors, Tarantino has specific actors. You just have actors that you trust and you work with and you see them a lot, but it doesn't mean it's not a different movie. It doesn't mean they're all the same.
It's also very, very hard to stick as a household name of a director if you don't have that kind of vision. Or, like, I think one of the few exceptions of Ridley Scott, he can do so many varied films and we all still know who he is without feeling the same. But for the most part, that's the only way people are going to notice you've put an imprint on your work without being in front of the camera. So this is a very hard thing to critique people for.
Yeah, we see it there's a lot of directors that go into different genres, but it's them. But that they have a signature something. It's just like
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh. He's experimental as they come. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? He went from
Mm-hmm.
this year alone, he had Presence, which is a
So
family
experimental.
drama horror from the view of a ghost, and then you have Black Bag. Two completely different movies, both of them
Yeah.
beautiful visually. Like there's something that a director has, some signature thing where you're like, oh, like Fincher. If you see a Fincher film, it's a Fincher film.
Even if it's a 5-minute short, you're like, oh, I bet this is David Fincher.
And that's what
Yeah.
I was having this talk with someone the other day. I was like, I wish there was more female filmmakers that were household names.
Well,
Because
except in a Bigelow, I don't really think that too many Gerwig come to mind.
yeah, or Sofia Coppola, but they're still known by movie people. Like I feel like if you
Uh-huh.
still say it, like to someone that is a casual moviegoer, there's not enough women where it's like they really stand out and have a signature. But I think Greta Gerwig is going to be one of those where she has a film and it's her film. And then I'm also really, really hopeful for Celine Song. And I know she's only had past lives, but she has
Uh-huh.
material that comes out this week, which I'm very excited for. I think she's such a talented writer director. Past Lives, I bought the screenplay of it because I think it's just such a beautifully like written film. It's beautifully directed and so like intentional every single shot.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for Materialist. It's a very different vibe than Past Lives was, but I just want to be Dakota Johnson because if Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans are my two choices, can I pick both?
Volcano Los Dos. Yeah, just smush those together and get like a peanut butter and chocolate cup here.
Please.
uh,
Yeah. I just wish there was more female filmmakers, but if we don't, get that for a little while, because people don't realize how long it takes to make a film. People think like, oh, they're doing a film. It's going to come out in a few months. Give it a few years. But at least we do have men that can do the female gaze correctly, like Pride and Prejudice. There are some men out there that can do right by females and female characters.
I think it is in part to his decision to let the cast be part of it more organically, because there's so many women working on this movie. From the production design to just the cast itself is mostly women. To be like, let me go off of the energy that I'm getting off of these instead of the tome of a text that is over 200 years old. I think I will hit a better audience than making something specifically for fans of the book, which is a
Yeah.
really hard decision anytime you adapt a book. But
Oh,
I think it's
100.
more important to go to the medium that you're in, which is film.
Yeah, exactly. It's book adaptations are so hard. I think 95% of the time the book will almost always be better because it gives you the time. It gives you the time for the characters and the arcs and the nuance. But there are some times where an adaptation isn't quite true to the book, but it still does justice as a film. And my example is always Jurassic Park. I love, but for the book being sci-fi, it's a lot more sci the
Yeah,
book.
it's a lot more science.
So much science in that book, and it's part of the reason I love it. And we get some of the science in the film, but we get a lot more of what's fun, and that's the action and the dinosaurs. So it's like it's not a true adaptation to the book, but it's just as good a movie as it is a book.
Exactly. And if you're coming for one from the other, you know which one you should like. And sometimes it's even so delicious that, like, hey, did you like Jurassic Park but want there to be more science? Well, guess what? There's a book waiting for you. You can go that, and there'll be more to consume in the IP of this wonderful world that you love.
Exactly.
Did,
Exactly.
did you have a favorite scene or a least favorite scene?
In Pride and Prejudice?
Pride and Prejudice, yeah.
Pride and Prejudice. I feel like I actually don't have a least favorite scene because of the fact that I felt like everything was just done so well. Like everything just was so smooth with the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe the mom secondhand embarrassment that I got from her being so cringe, but you know, it was what it was for the times. If I was a woman
Mm-hmm.
with 5 daughters, I might just be the same. I might be just as cringeworthy
It's a
trying to.
lot of pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So some of that was a little secondhand embarrassment. So maybe like those scenes, but they were needed. We needed
yeah,
to we needed that. Favorite
absolutely.
scene is the scene. Well, no, actually two. The scene at the end when he's coming from the mist to that long walk and then the sun coming through as their foreheads perfect. I also love the scene when they were dancing and they're doing, you know, that old dance where everyone happens to know the same dances to the right songs and everyone's always has perfect choreography, which I think is really unrealistic. I wouldn't have made it in that time period if dancing was part of that. But there's a
Oh,
scene where they're all dancing throughout each other, but then everyone else disappears and it's
yes.
just two and it's just quiet, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the score of that film is really underrated because the music is beautiful. It's just the swell of the music at the right time making you feel certain things. So I just love that dance scene when they're dancing and then everyone else disappears while they're still dancing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and get that sense of their connection just by the visual.
The Dario Marinelli score that this has is often praised as being like the best of Austen scores. And I was researching it and I found out that he actually composed the entire thing in 2 days on a single Steinway. Like it is very minimalistic. Two
Oh,
days.
and it's perfect.
And
It
it
fit
really fits.
everything fits perfectly. Everything.
It's almost like when you're doing your makeup and you do a bold eye, which is the costumes and the setting. You have to go for a neutral lip. You cannot also do a giant red lip. And the music here is the neutral lip that we needed.
It
It's
is
like, oh,
because
it
it'll go with anything.
balances.
Yeah, it just that and the I don't know, just literally every piece of this as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, this is beautiful cinematography. Oh, the
Yes.
score is beautiful. The acting is wonderful. And
So evocative.
not realizing how many people that are big stars now, like Rosamund Pike. I'm just like, you're in this movie? Okay. And Donald Sutherland, RIP, I miss him. I feel like they just did everything right by this movie. And it's really fun to learn that so much was ad-libbed because it really does come off very natural. And I saw an interview recently with Matthew MacFayden, and he said he didn't have the best time filming because he felt like he was miscast. But then he said he actually talked to Colin Firth, and Colin Firth felt like he was miscast when he played Mr. Darcy. So both of them just felt like they weren't the right fit. But, you know, as from an audience point of view, they were
They're
perfect.
perfect. And it's
So
also
it's
very
interesting.
hard because they're kind of supposed to be assholes that you like. So you're playing this character, and everyone on set is treating you like this asshole. I know
Yeah.
that there are certain scenes. There's one scene where Keira Knightley slams a door in his face. That was because the actors themselves were actually fighting before the take, and they were like, "Well, just use it in this scene because we are on a budget here, guys." And so a lot of that was them like actually butting. So I could see that being a problem.
Yeah. So, yeah, just everything I learned more about the film is so
Uh-huh.
fun, and there's just so much nuance to the story, the characters, and then learning behind the scenes. The movie has oneers, which I wasn't expecting. I love when they're like going through the home and you're just following this camera, just no
The
cuts.
one take in the front, yeah, the
Yeah,
oneer, it's so amazing.
I was like, oh, this is actually, and it's a confined space. So to do the oneer in that setting, because, you know, they're not as high class, and you see the difference in classism between the characters. But, Elizabeth's house with her family, it's very cluttered. It's very packed and cluttered and full of life. And then you go to these other settings, like Mr. Darcy's, where it's like a fucking museum. It's clean and pristine. And so to do the oneer in the more confined, busy space, I'm just like, oh, they did a really good job with that.
It's hilarious because Mr. Darcy's house is literally a museum now. That is a museum. And the marble
I
statue.
can go there?
You can. It has visiting hours. The marble statue that she's admiring, they made for the movie to look like MacFayden, and he had a lot of like while looking at it. He's like, I don't know how I feel about it. This is one of the few times where they actually represent Elizabeth's house as being incredibly cluttered. It is a real historic house, and so they were able to do that one take through it because it actually exists in a physical space, which is so delicious. But it also means that in some of the two take dialogues, they have to go handheld because there's like no room, and this is a very tiny room.
Yeah, I read that too. I was looking back into the background of it, and then a lot of it is handheld in those tight spaces, and I'm just like, I couldn't even imagine. I've done some camera work, but the handheld in those situations, and you got a certain amount of I feel like I would just be like, this would be me holding the camera.
So I did a stand-in for a film shot in a historic mansion, and like that is what you do. You get assholes to run every single take as many times as you possibly can, and then you bring the stars in. You already know, so that nobody bumps into anybody. But they did a wonderful job of it. There wasn't too many scenes where I was like, why are we handheld now? I'm like, okay, so we're handheld now.
Yeah, constraints. You work within what you've got, and they did a great job.
And Rosamund Pike was actually supposed to play Elizabeth, but because of scheduling conflicts, she could only do a smaller role. And I'm like, oh, wow, that would have been different.
That would have been very different. I'm glad Keira Knightley got it. I felt like she was the better.
Literally the age that the character is. This is like one of her first good, big films.
Exactly. And Rosamund Pike, like the features and stuff that she really is that like stereotypical what we see as this beautiful older sister Jane. And then when I see Rosamund Pike now, though, I just think of Gone Girl, and I'm like,
I know. That for me, they would have had to have changed her hair color, which is such a petty thing to say, but I wouldn't have bought Lizzie as being a blonde. It just would have been weird.
It would have to be like that like mousy brown color.
Yeah. For me, my least favorite scene and favorite scene are the same scene, which is kind of weird. It doesn't usually happen for me in a movie. But the scene where she's at the mansion and she's gone to tour the house. Mm-hmm. She's gone to tour Mr. Darcy's house, just assuming he won't be there because she heard he wasn't. And then she's surprised she sees him, which is silly. But
she's like, oh my God, you're here in your own home?
When she sees him go to give Georgiana a hug, the camera does a push zoom right into her eyes, and then she runs away. And it's the only push zoom in the entire movie, and it is so ridiculous that both my husband and I went, but also
they scared you for a second.
It's so evocative to the amount of terror that she had that I'm like, I hate it. It's very jarring, but I'm kind of like, leave it in.
Yeah, you're like, this was effective. I don't know how I feel, but you made me feel something, so
leave it, very love-hate. So as we approach the end of this wonderful chat, which I could go on for forever, which is really fun.
I know, probably. We could probably talk too long.
I try not to talk longer than the runtime of the movie we're discussing.
So next time we're going to watch the 6-hour Pride and Prejudice, and then that's our talk time, so we'll be good.
We'll be watching there's the longest
Moon.
The longest film ever made is actually about the production of a pedometer from beginning to end, and it's filmed in real time, and you actually see it get shipped to Sweden, and it's 35 days long.
Okay, so we'll need to take a vacation. We need to move in with each other at that point. We can do the longest podcast there ever was.
And the podcast is still going to this day.
Exactly.
So as we approach the end, these are the questions I always ask, which is, did you like this movie?
I loved it. Honestly, it was like a 5 out of 5. I walked out of there with Jane Austen in my head. I was like, I just want to speak like this. Now, can I? No. However, maybe I made a TikTok attempt where I did try and speak like that because she was just in Does your inner monologue have a voice?
Yes.
Because mine's British. I can't do a British accent, but in my mind, my inner monologue is actually British. So after I left Jane Austen, I was just like, "Ooh, this is perfect. It matches it matches my inner dialogue."
I have an inner monologue that will shift to match the prevailing style of what I am consuming the most of at the time.
Got
So
it. Got it.
sometimes it'll be British and that sometimes it'll be very like American pure. It just depends on what I am consuming the most of. But yes, it is.
Nice.
I mean, this movie revamped Regency fashion in 2005. People started, their wedding dresses were going to look like this. Everybody wanted to have Keira Knightley costumes and hair. And it's kind of like when The Great Gatsby came out in 2014, and everybody wanted to do the 1920s again. So yeah, people left this wanting more. Yeah.
Do all the 1920s. The Great Gatsby is actually one of my favorite books of all time. So there's a whole nother, just, the idea of the American dream. See, then we could talk for another couple hours. Just on
you could get me going. I actually got married in 2014, and our wedding was at the Historic Wistariahurst Museum, which is a 1920s silk baron's house. So we did a Great Gatsby theme.
Goodness, I could talk for ages on the book, on both of the films, on the era, like Josephine Baker and the outfits, and I could go on forever.
Well,
we need to move on to the next question. We're about to be here for a long time.
Next question. Would you recommend this to other people? And if yes or no, are there any caveats like I wouldn't recommend this to children?
Honestly, I think I would recommend it to anyone. I even think a child could watch it and still kind of understand, and grasp it, and probably more so than the other one because it's longer, the miniseries version. But this one, I feel like visually, if you want to get kids into like visually what looks good on film, apart from when you're young it's animation, it's Nickelodeon, Disney. I feel like a kid could watch this. It's not offensive in any way. And you know what, especially for females, for a little girl to see like a girl standing up for herself, like, I'm not going to just give in to a man, I'm going to do what I want to do. Elizabeth is well educated, she's a reader, she's very intellectual. You know what, I would be fine recommending it to them. I think the ones that are the most weary are probably men with Pride and Prejudice, because it's a period romance. However, I would highly recommend it to anyone that likes film that is a man, because it is the female gaze. Like, please look at it from a female's perspective and see the difference in characters, and then see a difference in how men are these days when they're courting a woman compared to, now to then is very different. And Mr. Darcy, he knows when a no is a no, but you can still care about someone and do things for someone if you have feelings for them. And then, if it works out, cool. If it doesn't, I think men nowadays, a lot of them don't like no.
It's very transactional.
Yeah, a lot of people take things very personally. And I think Mr. Darcy really grew as a person because he didn't expect to know. He thought, it's raining, I'm confessing my love to you. He also comes from wealth and money and all these people wanting him. And then when she tells him no, he is just taken aback. But he doesn't chase her and he doesn't beg her. He lets it be what it is. He still cares for her, and it ends up working out in the long run. But I think there's something to learn from it, from a man watching Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, and he doesn't scorn her or get angry. He works on himself, and he does those things because he wants to do them. Even though in that monologue, when he's coming up to her, he says, I'm sure you figured out I did them, and yes, I did do them because I love you, but it's not I did them to make you love me.
Yeah, exactly. I did this because I cared for you and I hope that you see that. However, I didn't do this to win you. You're not an object to win.
If anything, he's saying, I'm looking at you and I see you value your family. I'm looking at you and I'm learning about you, and not just women like flowers. So I gave you some flowers. Like, it's very nuanced. I do think this is a great choice for people wanting to get like a young feminist. Jane Austen is a great thing to give young girls to read because it's kind of light. It is within those restraints because when you're middle, you are still within restraints, but you should speak your mind. But also be polite in society. There's a pull and a tug between the ramifications of being a hard, headstrong woman. Like Lizzie still pays for it at times.
Yeah, there's a balance between it. And I think it's also, for young girls, it's respecting yourself. And I think something that I like the most from it is earning intimacy because she never just gives anything up. We don't even get a kiss until the end. It's that earned intimacy. And I think as women nowadays, myself included, being young, sometimes we just feel like we have to give ourselves. Like, I have to give my full self to you for you to want to be with me or you to love me. When at the end of the day, it's like you really should get to know me. You know what I mean? Get to know me. Who am I as a person? And I need to know, who are you as a person? Do you deserve me? And I don't think women do that enough. But Elizabeth, she does that. She's like, let's really get to know each other. They both grow individually. And he doesn't get that piece of her, intimately until the end. And then the intimacy in that, it's a kiss. It's not even, it's not sex and all these things. Really that waiting for it.
Yeah, it's very subtle and it's very nice to see in a different way than we normally do. So often nowadays they jump right to the bedroom scene and you have to work back from that. So yeah, it is cute, I think, for a cute kind of way for have readers look at what we're experiencing between these characters that are growing and learning about each other.
Exactly.
My final question, and I think I kind of know the answer because I feel like as a film person, you seem to be at a core agreeable on this. How do you feel about the experience of finally watching movies that you put off for whatever reason?
Honestly, I feel like I always have a good experience, even if maybe I don't love something as much as everyone else does. I feel like when something gets hyped up and I put off watching it, when I do watch it for the first time, I'm just watching it very like I immerse myself in it because I'm not just here like, oh, let's watch a movie. I'm sitting here like, oh my God, everyone loves this movie. Let me look at every single thing. And I actually notice more on a first watch than you would just watch like putting on something on Netflix. I'm sitting here, I'm just like, okay, I'm looking at the cinematography. How are these performances? How is the dialogue? How is the sound? How is, I'm literally all facets of my brain are just working at the same time to try and figure out, why does everyone love this and do I love this?
Yes. I don't even want to be like knitting or something. I'm like full attention on this movie because we need to be able to talk to people about it because everybody wants to talk about it. And so that's a lot of pressure. So there's a whole bunch of movies that I know I'll probably like, but I'm like, I haven't watched them yet. I mean,
No, same. And sometimes I just put them off because like I know the ones that are going to make me cry, those are the ones I really put off because I need to be emotionally prepared. Like if I'm a wreck this week, emotionally in my own life, I can't be a wreck in some fictional world. I don't have it in me. So I still need to watch Moonlight. I still need to watch After Sun. I still need to watch Grave of the Fireflies, which is going to be in theaters because they're doing like a Studio Ghibli like thing at AMC this summer, and I just want to watch all of them.
I don't know if I would see that in a theater because I would cry mad. I would cry
I already
mad in
know
a
I'm gonna
theater.
cry, so I feel like I'd rather cry, into some buttered popcorn because I know I know every single person has told me I will be a wreck. I will be devastated. Yeah, I know. That your face says it all.
Yeah, have you seen The Last Unicorn?
I have. When I was young, I haven't watched it since I was young, but I do remember really liking that film.
Rewatch it now as an adult because it hits hard sideways, and there's a couple of scenes where you're just like, why am I crying so hard? And that's kind of how Grave of the Fireflies feels as an adult watching this. But it's so beautiful. It's totally worth it. But there's just a couple of moments where you're like,
yeah, where I'll just be it's interesting watching movies as an adult. I love Drop Dead Fred, loved it since I was young. Watching it as an adult, you're like, this is very adult. I loved this movie as a child, but then I'm looking at all this trauma, childhood trauma that your parents give you and mental unwellness. I'm like, this movie was way deeper than I remember.
If you're familiar with the show podcast, How Did This Get Made? They have a fantastic episode on that movie where June loved it like we did because she's about the same age as us and watched it religiously as a kid, and so did Jessica Sinclair. And then the other people had never seen it, so Jason Mantzoukas and Paul, and so they're watching it as adults, and there becomes two factions, Team Sanity and Team Fred, where Team Sanity is like, this movie is crazy and not for kids. And Team Fred is like, yeah, but it's great though.
But it's great. But it's great.
It's
That
worth
movie,
it.
I just always think of Fred going under the mom's legs and he's like, oh, look, cobwebs. And I just die. I
So
die
ridiculous.
every single time. I feel like there's a lot of movies like that. Everything's different as an adult, but sometimes you just still love it. And that's one of them.
Especially for I think older when we were like kids, the movies were they expected our parents to watch them with us, and so they hid a bunch of stuff in there that they figured we just wouldn't notice, and we didn't.
Yeah.
And our
And we
parents
didn't.
could also watch the movie, but now it's like, I mean, I guess Bluey is a little bit like that. I'll sometimes watch Bluey with my nieces and be like, "Did you get that? Did you get that?" I
Yeah,
hope you
I
didn't get
haven't seen
that.
that one, but a lot of my friends that have kids always say that. They're like, Bluey's actually very adult, but they do it in a kid way so well, but they have like very serious themes. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to check one of these episodes out.
Worth your time. All right. Is there anything else before we cut out that you'd like to let people know about?
I guess just, if you want to check more of me out, it's Hey Crystal J on all the
Mm-hmm.
platforms. If
Mm-hmm.
you're into movie reviews, you need to find new trailers coming out, thecinemanook.com, also the Cinemanook on social media. And then I am working on a documentary called Love Horror about the beautiful genre of horror and the wonderful community behind it. The socials for that, it's Love Horror. And those are all the things I'm working on.
Beautiful. And again, all of that is
Thank
going
you.
to be in the liner notes. And as I do this edits, I put in visuals. So we'll have pictures of what we're talking about. We'll have links to those. We'll have a YouTube link that'll pop up like right there. That'll get Crystal's YouTube. So you can go there as well. Really easy to find her. And I definitely recommend that at the very least you be following her on Instagram or TikTok because you're going to get really great reviews. And it's the best way to stay up to date with, I think, most of the people I bring on here in the talk community. So please go do that because it's fun.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on. You've just always been such a gem and a treasure. You are one
Oh,
of the ones where I search for you to see if you've done new videos. You're
much
just like always
appreciated.
fantastic. And I just
Thank you.
have a love for you.
Oh, right back at you. Thank you for coming on and doing this. I cannot believe it was your second podcast ever. C'est magnifique.
Thank you. So I wouldn't have wanted my second time to be with anyone else.
It's that time of the episode where we double check our facts and add in any missing trivia we didn't quite have time to get to, but I still think that you're really going to enjoy to hear. Yeah, it's time for corrections and omissions. I said that Pride and Prejudice was self-published after Sense and Sensibility hit shelves, and that is not entirely true. Austen did write Pride and Prejudice first, like I said, around the age of 20, and it wasn't published until later. We got all of that right, but she didn't publish it herself. The rights were picked up by publisher Thomas Egerton in 1813, and it was sadly a very bad deal. Austen sold the copyright for Pride and Prejudice to Egerton for a one-time payment of £110. And this provided her immediate income, but it meant she didn't receive any further earnings from subsequent printing, sales, or adaptations. I threw out the idea that the gorgeous score for Pride and Prejudice was composed in 2 days on a Steinway. And this sounds romantic, kind of fits the movie. It's something a brooding genius would do at dawn, fueled by heartbreak and I guess espresso. But I did go to double check this because I was reading about it on Reddit and I could not find an actual concrete source confirming this myth. What is true is that Marianelli composed it on a single piano, and it is a minimalistic, haunting score. The 2-day part, probably just fan lore and something that's fun to pass around. It still sounds really cool, but it didn't. It probably took more than 2 days. Now let's roll into some juicy trivia that I didn't quite have time to fit into the episode because we were having such a great time talking to Crystal, and I loved every moment of that, but I just thought, let's give you guys a little bit more stuff. These were things I found while I was doing my research, and I found them to be fun. I don't know if you noticed, but right at the start of the movie, there's a little wink to Austen superfans. Elizabeth's reading a novel titled First Impressions, and that's not just a random title of set dressing for this book. It's a nod to Jane Austen's original title before she sharpened it into Pride and Prejudice. And if you freeze frame, you'll see that the pages aren't just random filler. It's the novel's final chapter, but with the name swapped out. It's like a secret handshake for the obsessed. Matthew MacFayden, our brooding Mr. Darcy, has notoriously bad eyesight. In fact, this was so bad that during the Misty morning shots, director Joe Wright had to wave a red flag behind the camera so that he would know where to walk and where to look. And while this is not glamorous and kind of undercuts the scene's sexiness, it is a great reminder that even period dramas have their goofy behind-the-scenes moments. Here's a curveball for the history buffs. This film is set in 1797, the year that Jane Austen wrote her first draft. However, most adaptations set themselves in 1813 when the book was published. This choice adds a fresher, different energy to the story. It's kind of like watching an early draft unfold rather than, say, the final polished bit of the novel. Just a little, another thing they did different here. Joe Wright had one hard rule for Kiera Knightley while filming this, and it was no pouting. Not a single pout. But there is one cheeky scene where she breaks that rule, and it is because that it is shot by the second unit when Wright wasn't around. And he still complains about it to this day. And speaking of things that are still blamed on people from this movie, Simon Woods had to dye his blonde hair red to play Mr. Bingley, and after that, it kept growing back in red. And he holds Joe Wright responsible. I guess that is how incredibly lasting his directorial impact can be on an actor. This is one I really enjoy. The first dance between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy was not meticulously choreographed or even shot over a dozen takes. It was accidentally captured in a single uninterrupted take because a camera was left rolling for establishing coverage and was not intended to capture the moment. But something very rare happened. With no one overthinking it and no one performing the lens, the characters just kind of were. The awkward tension, the slow blooming chemistry, the way they kind of orbited each other without touching, it all unfolded like it was meant to. And sometimes real magic happens when no one is trying very hard, and when the camera kind of forgets and allows us to just be the observers the audience is supposed to be. So when everyone kind of stops doing and is kind of more just being, you can capture kind of lightning in a bottle. And that not only is it just a one take, which I enjoy as a filmmaker, it's kind of like this beautiful moment that was captured. Before filming, all of the actresses who played the Bennett sisters, Keira Knightley, Rosamund Pike, Jenna Malone, Tallulah Riley, and Cara Mulligan, played sardines in the actual Bennett house that they shot in. Sardines is like the British version of hide and go seek. It's kind of a fun bonding ritual that helped them have more realistic sisterly chemistry. On that note, Jenna Malone and Donald Sutherland, she's American, he's Canadian, are the only non-English British actors in this cast. We talked about the bust of Mr. Darcy that was made to look exactly like MacFayden. Well, they actually made two of them because you don't want to make one in case one breaks. One of them is actually in MacFayden's bathroom, so he got to keep that. And the other one is at the Chatworth House, which is where this was filmed, because underneath it they sell little tinier versions that you can buy. Ironically, next to it is a sign that says, "Please don't kiss the bust," and they have to police that a lot, apparently. And finally, the military uniforms. If they felt oddly familiar, you're not imagining it. They were lifted straight from the Sharp TV series, yellow facings and all, and they represent a completely fictional regiment. So no, they are not historically accurate at all. But you know what? Historical accuracy can kind of take a backseat to visual flair and still work. It definitely is very sharp looking here, pun intended. The colors pop and contrast on screen, and it adds a slightly heightened, almost like storybook vibe to the whole thing. So sometimes the right aesthetic choice can beat the historically correct or accurate one, especially when you're trying to make iconography and not just reenactment. Well, that's it for corrections and omissions and trivia this time around. And that's a wrap on this episode of What If I Don't Like It? Huge thank you to our special guest, Crystal Justine, for hanging out and for sharing her sharp insights, brilliant humor, and genuine love of storytelling. If you are not following her on all of her media, you should be following her now and go check out Cinema Nook. And of course, thank you guys all for hanging out and letting me overanalyze like I always do and going trivia deep like a crazy little goblin. This episode was a real joy, and I did not think I would enjoy talking about such a romantic period piece film as much as I have. Oh, but before I go, I do have some big news to tell you guys about. Movie Runtime is now officially part of ThisSpace.tv. What is ThisSpace.tv, you might ask? Well, it is a brand new streaming network dedicated to independent media and working class voices. You can find it on YouTube, and the link is going to be below, and you can go to ThisSpace.tv and it'll be there. And now yours truly will be popping up in between shows to bring you what I do best: weird movie trivia, facts you didn't know, reviews, deep dives, basically all the stuff that you get here and on my TikTok, but now also there. It's kind of like the streaming universe finally gave me my own intermission soapbox that pop up in between shows that are really great and kind of align with the things that I believe right now politically in our world, to just remind you about movies and stuff and keep being a part of this community. So make sure to subscribe to ThisSpace.tv, tune in, and if you see me pop up between shows, please don't skip it. It's me, it's good. You'll learn something, probably something strange. Who knows? And of course, if you want more of this voice in your ears or in your face, follow me at Movie Runtime on all of the things. The Blue Sky, the TikTok, the Instagram, the Letterboxd. You guys know the Joe. And of course, until next time, don't like a film? Well, that's cool. Dig into that discomfort. I'm pretty sure that's where all the good stuff is.